is a new friend. This is so exciting. Thank you for spending your 8 o'clock hour on a Thursday here talking and listening to other people talk about their career. I mean, it's a very interesting, that's commitment, I feel like, to your career. You're like, 8 o'clock on a Thursday, what could I be doing?
You could be partying right now.
Is it on? Am I just...
There we go. Oh, I'm loud. There you go. Now you're
thank you.
It's got to have the green light.
I'm sure that got picked up. I'm way too loud for that to not have been picked up. But yeah, you're here. And, I guess you could be updating your LinkedIn profile otherwise, but you're here. So thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you to this wonderful panel for being here. We're going to go down the line and introduce everybody. And, I mean, we're also up on that screen, which is pretty cool. I don't know. I'm feeling excited. Thank you so much. Okay. So we are here, the people on this panel have done one of two things. One, streamed at some point and then taken that experience and made it part of their career or used it to get to the next part of their career. Or started in a really kind of traditional career space and then moved into streaming and are now hustling the hell out of streaming. And eventually you'll be able to move that into something else. So those are the two perspectives that you're going to get here. We are gonna, I guess, throw around fancy titles and what we normally do. I think the funnier thing to me is normally when I talk to streamers, everybody's super on the down low about what they do for their day job. They're like, yeah, I also stream in the evening, no big deal. But this is the opposite. This is, all of us talking about streaming that brought us to the jobs that we're in. So without further ado, and my name is Marie Shanley. I'm also known as Mxiety. I am a content creator who's focused on mental health, mental well-being. I've done research in the space. I have actually presented at PAX said research, and I find that content creator mental health is something that's not talked about enough. So I'm talking about it loudly. So we're gonna go down and start from here. Steve, tell us about yourself, but there's a 2.0 there. Okay. When you started, what were you focused on? Like, you started streaming, you're like, this is my goal, because I don't think it was your current job. So I want to hear what your focus was, and did you reach that? Did you go to something else? How did that inform what you decided to do as a job? And go.
Okay. Is this on? Hello.
Do you have the green button?
Is the green thing on?
Green button? Oh, hey, ooh. Didn't know there was a button.
Mm-hmm.
I should probably know that. I stream. Anyway, hi. I'm Steve Saylor. I am a content creator, Twitch ambassador, and accessibility consultant in the video game industry. I've had my credits now officially in the Last of Us series, Call of Duty, and a few Ubisoft titles as well. To answer your question about kind of when I started streaming, I kind of went the traditional route first. I was actually working in radio and in broadcasting. That was going to be, radio was going to be my career. I did not think about streaming or even working in video games was going to be the thing I was going to do. Because radio was the thing that was my dream job growing up. But, as much as the gaming industry is suffering through right now, I went through a layoff in 2019. And I had already been doing sort of a version of content creation, whether it's YouTube and streaming, through a series I call Blind Gamer, which was sort of showcasing and highlighting accessibility within games through my perspective lens, and that was kind of why I sort of started streaming, but it was always a side thing while I was working my day job in radio, never really thinking about it being anything else. But then as people started to see and come to my streams, people were starting to ask questions, and there was then people who were working at studios wanting to know more about what it is I do and how to be able to make games more accessible, and essentially that kind of led into where I'm currently working as a consultant in the industry today. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I mean,
okay, cool.
You answered, and I think if one were to summarize maybe even all the answers as we go down, it's going to be a lot of, I went here, I went there, I went a little bit of everywhere, and I landed in a place that I don't mind at all. So
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
That sounds about
Yeah. Summary.
yeah. But sorry, no spoilers. Crev.
Hi, my name is Lisa Creveling. I go by Crev online. I actually started out as a online DJ, and I was a voice artist. I started out as a voice artist when I was 11 years old. So I was always kind of drawn to public speaking, and I loved video games, and I didn't really know anybody playing the game that I wanted to play, so I was like, why not? And I booted up my PS4, and the rest is history. Played video games for a good 7 years, I think it's been. So, from that, I realized that I have a strong love for charity. So a lot of my work has gone into charity consulting. I've worked as a live stream charity community manager. I've also worked as influencer relations and recruitment, as well as fundraising planning and events. So that's kind of where my derailing has kind of gone to, and it allows me to work with charities to help understand the space. There are so many amazing charities out there, but they don't really know how to connect with content creators, so I've kind of stepped in to bridge that gap for them. And yeah, honestly, I've been able to consult with companies. I worked with Stack Up, American Heart Association, and the National MS Society, and I'm still also consulting with several other charities on how to bridge the gap of just getting into being able to talk to content creators as well.
Awesome. All right, so Brandy, we have a little bit of a different version of the story where you had a traditional job and then you are full in, totally committed to streaming now. So give us that background.
Hi, I'm Brandy, and like you said, I kind of went the opposite route. So I started streaming as just like a hobby to do on my free time, while I actually was a high school teacher. So I went to school for that, got my master's, and that was my goal. That was the main focus, the dream. And for anyone, if you've been in, teaching or education, it's not the greatest. And definitely once COVID hit, it was way worse. So I started off with that streaming, and I'm also a cosplayer, so I always loved being artistic, and I loved being able to express myself. And especially within teaching, I always had this mindset of I just want to be able to help people. I want to be able to serve as potentially a mentor for others, a tool for others to, unleash their potential. And I always thought teaching was the best way to do that. I never realized that you could accomplish all of those same goals within streaming in just a totally different medium. So once COVID hit, I quit teaching. Ironically, I actually quit a month before COVID happened, just because I was looking for a change anyways, and it ended up being a blessing because then I went into content creation full time, and here I am now, still doing that, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm so grateful that I am able to use the skills that I gained in being a teacher for, 4 or 5 years that I did it in where I am now. And not only that, I hope to potentially, I would love to be, a community manager for a different company. My dream is to work with Twitch directly in the future. So I'm kind of, taking the stepping stones now to move up into that, since it is, that's a large jump from just being a creator to then working with the company that you aspire to be a part of so much. So I definitely went the reverse route, but nonetheless, still made a big change that I'm extremely grateful for.
And you're able to market that, and which we will get into, but the fact that you're able to market your skills, not only first as a teacher, but now as a creator who has that background, like your background never goes away, you just keep growing and expanding on it. So
Exactly.
That's awesome. All right, Mayhem Mermaid, let's go, tell me.
Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie. I also go by the Mayhem Mermaid on Twitch and socials. I am a little bit of a Jane of all trades. So before COVID even happened, I had a lot of different odd jobs, whether it was working on off-Broadway when I lived in New York, or I worked with children as well. I did work in education, and I worked at a summer camp. I did birthday parties for children, and I held a lot of different roles within customer service, whether it was hospitality, retail, the nine. And I found myself not finding a home somewhere. So over COVID, I didn't have work at the time, and I made my first Discord account, and I decided to create a community for Animal Crossing players. And that eventually expanded and became my Twitch community. And I've been a streamer on Twitch for about 3.5 years now, and I'm very happy with the trajectory there, but it still wasn't making means for me financially. So in 2022, I actually found a role at Streamlabs on the technical support team. And I worked with them for about 1.5 years before I was laid off by Logitech. I feel like a lot of people can relate with everything that's been happening. But I took that experience, and now I work for an AI productivity tool software, I guess you can say, as a customer experience manager. So I was able to work my way up to a managerial role despite having all of these little niche experiences in different little places. And my goal is to take everything that I've learned along the way and show people that even if you don't have a conventional background within your career, you can still find that success and find a place where you feel like your experience shines and you can do something to change the world.
Just a little aspiration, just change the whole world.
No big deal.
And in case you're wondering what makes me mildly qualified to moderate this panel, what I did is I had a talk show on Twitch that was focused on asking content creators about mental health as a content creator, and it just so happened that I was doing that, like that was kind of my evening gig from the work that I was doing as a project manager, and then I saw this role pop up at a place that was my dream to work at. It's one of those, like, I would never actually apply there, but once in a while you just take a peek and see what they have listed. And my sister and I joke that I am a long lost Muppet. And so I now, because of the work that I was doing in mental health advocacy, when Sesame Workshop put out an ad that said, hey, we're looking for a project manager for our content team who gets new media and who specifically understands like mental health and branding in that aspect. And it literally took, my interview time took 6 months, because when they found me, they were like, well, we're still looking and interviewing other people, and then they came back around to me and I got the job. But it was because it was very weird, niche little thing, but it was a bunch of other things that came together to become my role, and it ended up that, like, I had the perfect skills for the job description, but I think if I had went in, you know, even to college and been like, one day I'll do this job, I couldn't have done that, right? And I think that's the case for everybody here. And so I would love to now talk about what about your background and what about the skills that you learned in streaming make you either qualified in your current role, or, you know, vice versa. What about your background brought you there? So actually, Brandy, do you mind starting us off? So what about your background in teaching was like, yes, streaming, of course, I'll be amazing at that.
So I've been streaming on Twitch for about 9 years now. So I was simultaneously streaming and teaching for a bit. And not that I was streaming as a career, it was just for fun. And clearly, given my career choices, I love talking all the time. So I already found like a niche in that, of just enjoying that. But outside of just the being on Twitch part, all of the skills that I learned in teaching and I learned in college, the organization skills, the ability to put a plan into action, being able to do all of the behind the scenes stuff, the talking with companies, the talking with different, you know, people within the industry, other creators, being able to establish those connections, I don't think I would have been able to do those things to the capacity that I do, or would I have had the confidence to speak to those people or reach out to those people if I didn't have those skills that I established in teaching. Because so much so, you're an individual within your own classroom as a teacher. So you're the one making the whole plan. You're the one that is basically talking to a group of like 30-something people every day, and they're looking to you for all of the advice. They're looking to you to know exactly what to do, what to say. And with streaming, a lot of that follows through as well, where everybody that is watching you at home, you might not have, a room of this many people in front of you physically, but those people are there. They're watching you, and they're coming for guidance. They're coming for entertainment. They're coming for, I also within my stream talk a lot about mental health and being open with your community. And, that was a lot that I did with my students as well. So it was, natural for me to carry that same type of mentality over. So a lot of the skills that I built in my first career path, I feel like are what helped me to excel within streaming. And then even pushing beyond content creation, me setting the groundwork for talking with companies, working with different companies and brands. Like I've worked with Riot Games on a bunch of different things, which is a company that I absolutely love. And I don't think that I would have been offered those opportunities if I wasn't putting myself out there and speaking up for myself and advocating for myself, because I had already had to do that within, the education system. So I definitely carried a lot of that over, and then I'm continuing to carry that over into whatever next steps I take.
Listen, if you can fight the education system, you can do anything.
Yeah.
You can do, and that's right. Sure. And that's any state in the United States and beyond.
Yeah.
So I wanted to move to you, Crev, because what you did is you had a focus, if I'm not mistaken, on fundraising in your stream.
I did.
So what made you go from I'm raising money for all these brands to I could probably help them get people to raise money for them?
It's a great question. So I actually have funded a charity influencer organization called Streamersphere. And through that, I basically was able to set up events so that way content creators could learn how to fundraise and learn how to set up a charity stream. And so I was already doing the work, and I had gotten noticed by the National MS Society. I had worked with them as part of their advisory board. So I was the person that was like, hey, this is what content creators need from you. We need this data. We need these assets. We need what this money goes to or what that money goes to. So I was already sort of kind of poised to take that work. And then when they basically let me know, hey, we have a live stream community manager job open, we think you'd be a good fit for it. And I basically took one step from their advisory program right into being their community manager. So instead of just advising behind the scenes, I was now there in front of everyone. This is how it handles. So I handled their social media. I handled the recruitment for their fundraising efforts. So I was already doing a lot of that stuff behind the scenes in my own sort of network, in my own sort of community. So it kind of just easily was a change for me for that. And since then, I loved getting a chance to work with them. And then the American Heart Association, from my work with the National MS Society, were like, hey, we'd love to have you with charity recruiting. So it was already something I was, had been doing with the National MS Society. So I was able to kind of pinpoint what content creators want to know about the opportunities, reaching out to them, being able to speak the language so that way I'm not just coming out as a corporate dry email, fundraise for us. And I'm like, no, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing in the streaming space. This is how it benefits. These are the sorts of things we can support you with. And being able to understand it from both sides allowed me to connect with those content creators who genuinely wanted to fundraise for those events. So it basically turned into a really great, seamless kind of step forward for me.
I have to ask, because I think all of us who've ever been reached out to by a fundraiser being like, can you raise money for us? And at some point maybe rolled our eyes because you were called the wrong thing or whatever it is in that email. So I have to ask, what was your top personal, man, if I could just help these people stop doing this one thing in these emails, did you have any? I know it's
did.
Curveball.
Oh, yeah, no,
okay,
I did.
Go.
So the biggest thing that I noticed is my name would constantly be spelled wrong.
Oh my God.
Always. And I'm like, you could have taken 2 seconds to look at my social media. I
Copy-paste it.
promise it was right there. And then a lot of times they're like, it's literally a canned phrase that says, hey, I checked out your content. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what about my content was great? And then the email would just go dead. And I'm like, okay. So instead, what I was able to do was I was allowed to allocate time to sit on Twitch. Literally, I got paid to watch Twitch and connect with these content creators. I was like, man, I was in your Thursday stream. That kill streak was amazing. I love what you did there. And that weapon choice, that was pretty bold. But having that conversation with them that shows I was there. And I was actually engaged with their content. I will text and write in chat, hey, And I don't usually, a lot of the times I'll come in on my personal account. I'm not coming in as a business. I'm not trying to take away from their content. I'm coming in as me because I'm a content creator too. So I want to be able to connect with those people and say, man, this is great. Or like watching somebody raid in Final Fantasy 14, like as a raider too, I'm like, man, that's so cool. I'm glad you guys are at this part. We're at this part. And it allows you to build that rapport instead of just being a cold, dry email.
Heck yes, heck yes. All right, how does that also then transfer over to something like customer service? Because I mean, I can see it being similar where, again, like I'm a creator, I know how I don't want people to talk to me. Also, as a streamer, stuff breaks all the time. Yeah. And it would be so fantastic knowing that, like, again, I could fix the thing that when I reach out and I'm like, hey, this is broken. How do I like fix it? Or please make a better product. I don't know. How do you want me to, like, I don't know how I know what I want you to do. I don't know how to talk to you the best way to do it. So what was it about streaming that made you go, okay, this is a good man, if I had
About
a
that
dollar.
tech support issues?
No, that's on me. That's on me. But yeah, so what was it about streaming and the work that you did that you were like, this extends pretty well to, because when you're applying, you have to sell yourself on like, I can do this job. So what was it that made you be like, I know I can do it?
I'm going to base this around 3 things. And the first one I'm going to say is, this is just a word of advice for everyone in the audience who is also a creator. Put streaming on your resume. It would surprise you how impactful that can be on the experience that you can share, because you're your own boss and you do so many things that make an effect on creating what's considered a massive project. So consider it a project management role with a little more fun than your typical project management role, but it still works. But the 2 things that I really focus on when it comes to my own career is streaming is very front-facing. I'm constantly communicating with people. It's something I also do during the day at my job. So it really helps me learn how to communicate with empathy, understanding, and patience. And that's something that you really need to have in a tech support role overall, because you're trying to get to the niche of this problem and fix it. I call myself a little bit of a detective when it comes to my work, because I have to do a little bit of digging sometimes to get the answers that I need. And that's the second thing that I want to base it on. You have to assume that the problem is there and what it is before you actually know if it is the problem. So you have to know what kinds of questions to ask, what kinds of things you need to look into. And I feel like doing that for myself within my own content when my streams would break, sure, when I worked at Streamlabs and I used Streamlabs Desktop, I could just go and put in my own user ID and look at the problem right there. So it was super easy, but I didn't always have that. So being able to have learned how to do that before I had the tools that I used at that time really helped me learn how to pass that on to that role, which now I use in a more managerial sense because I spearhead an entire customer base. I'm the only person on the support team at my role now. So everyone speaks to me first, and then I delegate as I go. And it's really important to have that patience, take your time, make them realize that you're aware that they have a problem and that you're there to fix it. And even if it doesn't happen right away, it will happen at some point. And I feel like that's something that you can tie into being a streamer as well. When someone comes into your chat with a little bit of conflict, take your time, take a deep breath, address the situation with them, try and mitigate, be a little bit of a peacekeeper, and you'll see that those kinds of traits really go back and forth between a customer service role and being a content creator.
Oh my gosh, I feel customer service just now. Like, thank you very much. Thank you.
I'd give you 5 stars.
Right, easy.
Thank you.
Easy.
5 stars on Yelp, please. Thank you so much.
So, Steve, your role, I mean, obviously, accessibility is something that you're passionate about because it's something that affects you and that you have to work through and push past. But you're starting out in radio, and you're moving into content creation, which almost seems like a hop and a skip, right? Older media into newer media. But then what brings you to like, okay, now I'm going to like, how do you go from there to being like, I'm going to help make games better for people like me?
So essentially, when I started doing Blind Gamer, it was actually a YouTube channel that I started in 2015, and it was at the time where I had stopped playing video games because video games became too complex and it was harder for me to be able to play. So something that I loved doing ever since I was a kid was a hobby that I just was like, okay, well, you know what, I'm getting into my 30s. I should probably, you know, maybe stop playing video games because I just couldn't be able to play them anymore. I know. And so then what I was hanging out with some of my friends, and I had friends that when we're in Toronto, like some work in game dev, some just like we're all just geeks. We're all nerds. So they're all talking about, you know, they're playing video games and what the current sort of game was at the time. And I just remember saying to them, I was like, you know what, I've been telling y'all that I suck at games like for years. Maybe I should just, you know, prove it. And I just was like, I just started recording on my, just me trying to be able to play a game. And I always said it was like more funny to be able to watch me fail than it was for me to actually do well. And I was at a point with my specific disability that I was able to laugh at myself of how bad I was. So you were definitely not coming to my content for the top tier. I'm not Shroud in any way, shape, or form. I'm the absolute full-on opposite of it. But I can, like, what was fun was being able to figuring out how games worked, and I was able to sort of figure out using my own adaptation with my, like, whenever I'm, like, for those who may not know, if you have a disability, the most common like superhero trait that disabled people have is our ability to adapt. We could adapt to pretty much whatever the world is around us because we have to. And so being able to adapt and my sort of play style within the video game was something that I had fun with. And then as it kind of grew into more of it was a side thing that I was having fun with, to then when I was starting getting invited to panels and talking to different studios, it started to become a little bit more than just that, and I started to kind of understand the educational aspect of it, where essentially I could be able to show, okay, here's how I play a game, and here's what I'm looking for when I'm playing a game. And it was very natural to be able to do that while streaming, because as you know, if you're playing a game, you're constantly having to be talking. So you're always like this is another actually skill you may not know you have if you're a streamer. You actually are really good at improv because you have to, or in business speak, you're able to think on your feet. So so it's something that because I'm constantly having to talk, I'm always able to explain what it is that I'm able to do with my disability, but then also learning about other disabilities, I'm able to be like, well, if this had this, then this will be a little bit better than this. And because I was starting to do that on stream and on YouTube, funny enough, I actually like how it got my current gig right now, and how I literally what I do on streaming is my job with this company. Is that I was playing Call of Duty Zombies with my friend or with my friends during the pandemic. And I remember at one point, like as often it happens when I'm playing with friends, they're like, okay, hey, Steve, what's the accessibility like in this? And I remember saying point blank, Call of Duty is the least accessible franchise in video game history. Little did I know that there was a Call of Duty dev in the chat, and they were like, okay, bet. And they basically were like, they went into their bosses, and they went and it took about 6 months roughly, but I was then able to present a contract to work on Call of Duty. And we're like, okay, let's try to be able to make Call of Duty more accessible. And literally what I do is I just play builds of versions of Call of Duty, and I just record myself playing it. And I just talk about here's what I would do with this, here's what I would do with this, here's the reason why I do this, and it does twofold, because it essentially like lets them know what I'm thinking about when I'm sort of thinking about when I'm just adding my consulting aspect to it, just talking it through, but also they get to see what my gameplay is like. And it's not, I'm not like making fun of myself anymore. It's a valuable asset because they can see how the game is played from someone with a disability, and that's more valuable to them than just me just talking to them in a meeting. So that's literally like, and if it wasn't for streaming and being able to like learn those skills as I was, getting better at streaming and making content, that I would not literally be where I'm at today.
Yeah. Educating and communicating while he streams is what got you to then. Interesting. That's resonating. It's all. I feel like it's all connecting, and it's all in the similar vein. So I have to ask, what skills do you feel like have transferred from streaming that maybe you expected to, and then which ones you didn't expect to? So you were talking a little bit about the fact that you're like, hey, I ended up kind of improvising. A lot of people don't realize that you're improvising and you're on your feet. Like, what skills did you go in knowing, like, hey, I do a lot of this? For example, I talk a lot, and I love organizing stuff and time and making sure that everything's like lined up perfectly. That works out great for me as a streamer because I know that, first of all, I have a regular schedule because of it. If I need to present something or offer something to like a game developer who's asking me to play for them, like I know, hey, I'm gonna send you a schedule, I'm gonna send this on this day, and like, so those are skills. I mean, if you asked me what a streamer does before I started streaming, I don't think I would have known to tell you, like, oh yes, obviously my project management skills will come in here. So I'm here to ask you, what skills did you expect would transfer and which don't? And bonus points, only bonus points, if you can tell me like a bullet in your resume, like manages large scale communications with lots of disgruntled viewers. Like, if you start with a bullet point in your resume, if you don't do that, there's just bonus points. But yeah, just I'd love to go through what did you expect and versus what actually has. And I don't know, Brandy, if you want to start.
I would say, well, definitely going off of what you were saying with streaming, you wouldn't think that as a streamer, you technically work like 20 jobs at once.
Right.
Because, yeah, you're a streamer and everyone's like, oh, you play video games for a living. You get to just play games on Twitch and that's your job. It's like, that is the easiest part of my job, is the part that you see. You don't see all of the back end. You don't see the tons of different calls that I have to have with different companies. You don't see the times where I'm spending hours a day hopping into different communities, chats, and I'm talking with people and I'm making those connections, making friendships. Not everything necessarily has to be with a business mindset, but just making those natural connections is a whole part of it too. And that takes a lot out of you as a person because you're having to physically be like on at all times because you're either talking with someone, you're preparing to talk to somebody, or you're planning about talking to someone at another time. So you're doing that, you're doing the business aspects, you're doing the financial parts because you're managing everything for yourself. So you literally have so many skills that you acquire through streaming. Like even as a teacher beforehand, I didn't have none of the technical stuff, none of that. Like I knew how to make a PowerPoint. That's about how much I knew how to do technical wise. So I had to learn all of the back end of streaming. And when I first started streaming, it wasn't as wide known, or I would say things weren't as accessible as they are nowadays. So YouTube was my best friend in learning everything and being self-taught. And then those skills that you're self-teaching yourself through streaming, you can then attribute to other things. So I, as a cosplayer as well, I'm constantly going to other conventions, wanting to work with different companies at those conventions outside of just doing my own work, working with those companies, seeing what they want from me, what I need to present to them. You know, I had the pleasure of working with Riot Games for their world tournament that they had in New York City a couple years back at Madison Square Garden. And to like prepare for that, like how do you prepare to do something like that? You know, no one's teaching you those skills. So you can't always transfer direct one-to-one skills over, but the things that you have learned, you can be like, okay, how am I going to attribute this to the next thing that I'm tackling or the next thing that I'm taking on? So something of that nature, you kind of have to act on the fly because there's not always something you can carry over that is going to be exactly what you need to be prepared for. So it's a big mix of both.
What do you feel like, so Mermaid, what do you feel like you expected like, oh yeah, this is easily going to transfer over. Like literally, I'm putting it on my resume versus I didn't expect that, but that's come in handy.
Yeah, I feel like my technical background obviously helped me get my role at Streamlabs, and then the role that I'm in now, the tool that I work on is also a recording software. So that transferred over very, very well. But I didn't realize that my organization skills were going to help me as much as they do now. I started out with Notion using it as a personal tool. So I would create a page to set up my games that I want to play in the future, projects that I want to do, collaborations that I want to set up, and just keeping all of those lists together so that I didn't have to remember what I wanted to play 3 months ago, because it's just not going to happen. So I used the skills that I adopted within my Notion to organize the work that I did at Streamlabs with creators on the affiliate program, which was a whole other thing that was beyond my day-to-day work. So it was a great way for me to keep organized with that. And then I use it now in my role here at Rewatch with the Help Center. So it helps me keep organized with outdated articles. It helps me remember which ones I fixed. And it gives me that sense of comfort knowing that I've made progress, I've moved things along, and what I still need to work on. But something that I didn't expect to learn so much about was work-life balance. I feel like we're never, ever taught that.
We know what that is? There's a balance?
Sometimes, says the girl who walked in late to the panel, but it's okay.
That's you were so balanced with your personal life.
That's the point, though. It's like you're not taught how to balance a full-time job with creation. So it's something that I feel like I've really adopted with my skills as a customer service rep. Just always wanting to reprioritize things to make things work for you. I adopted that into my personal life as well, so that I'm able to not burn myself out from the work that I do day to day and still be as creative and engaged with my community as I would like. And I'm still working on it, obviously, but I feel like it's something that takes time. It takes a lot of patience with yourself, mostly. And once you're able to master that, I feel like you're just unstoppable.
That's just transcendent. Okay, Steve.
Okay, so the way I kind of always kind of describe it is that, like, oftentimes there are many sort of hidden skills that you don't realize you have that essentially can translate into multiple different jobs, not only just obviously in broadcasting, but just in many different types of careers. And we're going to go through a bit of a thought experiment for a second. So if you're a streamer and you're going to set up, you're going to stream that night, okay? So you're going to start off with, okay, you get your room set up, you get your, your lights, your camera, your computer, your streaming software.
Your
you're
mic
all ready
is
to
muted.
go. Yep, and you also you take you create a social post saying, hey, that you're live. Either it's taking a picture, or creating graphics, or a video, whichever. And then you go live, and then you start talking to your chat for a bit. Then you start maybe jumping into some gameplay, and then you play that for about maybe a couple hours, and then you end your stream, and then you maybe the next day or right after you start looking through and trying to be able to find some clips to potentially be able to put on other social platforms to basically post, try to be able to get people back to your next stream. That's kind of the typical content creator, streamer sort of handbook.
That's it.
Just everything.
But if you think about it, every single thing that you did translates to a literal job from somewhere in a different industry. Literally, setting up your house, you basically become your own technical director. You become a producer. You also are a graphic designer because you're creating your own graphics. You're a lighting technician because you set up your own lights. You're also an audio technician because you know how to be able to work with audio, balancing your microphone plus also your gameplay. You know how to be able to do improv because you're talking to people while you're also playing. You're doing community management because you're talking to your chat. Also social media management because you're posting your stuff that you're actually streaming. So that's all. You're a social media manager, also a digital producer, and then you go in and you actually be able to edit. that you're an editor because you're editing all your clips. You're going through and creating these moments, and you're basically putting these up onto other social platforms. Now you're a digital producer. All of those things translate into jobs, like literal jobs. Like every single one of those is a job. That's why we say we got 20 jobs, and when you're a streamer, that literally anyone else can be able to get a lot of money to be able to produce just for one of those jobs, and you have all those skills. So if anyone in this room or anyone watching on stream saying that, oh, I'm just a streamer, you are far more than that, and I don't want to ever hear you say just a streamer again. Because you are basically someone that could be valuable in any field that you go into.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks. Yeah, I was about to say thanks, Dad.
There you go.
Are you proud of me?
You want me to do it? I'm proud of you.
I don't know that you can follow that.
I can't. I'm sorry.
That was the showstopper.
Yeah, honestly, there's not much more I could say that hasn't already been said. But the biggest lesson I learned just from all of this is that a degree isn't going to prepare you for this. It's that experience of actually just streaming, just turning on your stream and having that lived experience of just being there and experiencing it as you go. As far as like transferable skills for me, the one that actually caught me the most off guard was when I started streaming, I was a new player to Final Fantasy XIV. That's where I started. And as I learned from other viewers who would come in and teach me, I ended up becoming a teacher in that game. So I spent a lot of my time basically mentoring and teaching other people. And I realized that in all of my subsequent jobs past streaming, I have become a mentor or a teacher in those roles. So that was the most surprising one for me. I was like, oh, I picked up a lot of teaching skills all of a sudden. Where did this come from? But yeah, other than that, a lot of the roles that, many people have already kind of mentioned are all things that I've now been able to kind of incorporate into that job just from, having, especially for charity, running my own charity streams. I would just, put up a donation goal and then hope that people would do it. And then I realized, okay, what if I made fun incentives? What if I made a funny hat or something whenever a donation happened? And it made me become kind of more creative and more event management sort of focused. And that basically helped me in those subsequent jobs afterwards.
Okay, all right. Ooh, this is a lot, and this is really meaty. So I want to try to pare it down a touch. And I guess if you had like one big takeaway, if somebody, let's say right now, is like, okay, cool, you just told me I can have 20 jobs. How do I pick which one I'm going to apply for? Because I think we all know you probably can, but you can't really have a career being like, I can do 20 of these things kind of okay. Like you start leaning into one thing more, and like you realize you are good at charity and communicating with people, and you realize you're good at education, communicating with people and leading, being able to like be at the forefront of big events because of your teaching. So how do you, if you could kind of have one takeaway, that's how do you figure out the kind of the meat and potatoes of what you do that like, oh, this part of streaming is really what gets me excited, and I think when I apply to jobs, I can point that out and be like, that's the thing that I am best at, and that's why you want to hire me for that thing. Steve, I'll make you go first.
Sure. There's something that my dad taught me when I was a kid. And he taught me a lot of things. I love my dad. But he said, when you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about, he said, if you're interested, you'll be interesting. And it was something that I kind of took into what helps me sort of decide on what I want to be able to do. Is that if I'm interested, I know that it's going to be interesting to someone. And that helps, as the mind of a content creator. But like, as you said, and I said earlier, you have all these 20 different jobs that you can be able to essentially do either, as you said, either relatively okay or maybe some better than others. I think as you are streaming and you're, figuring out kind of what it is that you like about streaming, you start to kind of realize the things that you sort of gravitate towards the most that you enjoy doing, whether that's, creating an amazingly technical looking and like a production heavy stream, that's something that you can potentially go into like as a producer or in broadcasting, or that's something you can have fun with. If you prefer, being able to edit your clips together, and you had so much fun just making like funny clips or just education clips or whatever, and you have a lot of fun being able to finesse that clip to be able to make it as cool as or as best as possible, you might want to be able to look into being an editor. If you prefer being able to talk to people on chat or through social media, you might want to look into community management or social media. It's not always necessarily the end goal. I mean, like I said before, like my dream job was working in radio. I had no idea that basically my second career going into now I'm 40 and I'm playing video games for a living. I did not expect that. Did not even think that that was even going to be a thing. So what you try to be able to figure out now will probably not be the thing you end up doing 10, maybe 15 years from now, but that's okay, because the things you learn in the things as you're figuring stuff out, you start to kind of like realize the things that you are passionate about and that you're interested in, and you then start to kind of have a lot more fun with your job. I know the cliche is that, if you can, wake up Monday morning and you look forward to going to work, then that's what that's the work that you should be doing. I know that sounds cliche, but it can be. And then, work is always hard. That definitely, there's not going to be any good days. But if you still have fun doing what you're doing, then that's something that could basically and you learn that from streaming. That's even cooler. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love
Yeah?
that.
Okay.
It's follow your interest and see where it leads you.
Yeah.
It might lead you into making your own role, or it might lead you into wanting to learn something. I love that. I love that a lot. Who wants to go next? Oh.
I'll go.
Yeah, go.
why not?
Yeah.
In contrary to that is you get to figure out what you don't like.
That
So that was the
yes.
biggest thing for me. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I did not want to edit videos. Can't sit in front of a video editor to save my life. I hate it. And I knew that. And now I know that being an editor is not in my future. But what I was able to see is I like kind of creating these events. This is fun for me. This is exciting. And at the same time, whatever you move into, again, it doesn't have to be permanent. I'm actually this fall headed to game design school and game development school. So I'm now moving from content creation of current games to being able to build those games. And now I get to
my world.
I know, I'm so excited. And I get to use my lived experience, because also as a disabled creator as well, I know now what sorts of things I can implement as being a creator who reviews games and accessibility and what to put into those games in the future. So don't be afraid to just branch out. Don't feel like you have to be pigeonholed into whatever you select. If you find out, you get a job as a social media manager, and then a year later you find out it's not for you, it's not for you. You can definitely go back and review those things that did spark joy for you, kind of reevaluate them, see if there's any more learning out there, whether it's YouTube, whether it's finding a mentor in the community, and kind of working with those to see if it's something that'll fit. But yeah, it's trial and error at the worst, and success at the best.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. You could just have a stare off for the last.
Whoever blinks.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go.
Okay, go.
Something that I found that I really enjoyed, which I mirrored it earlier when I said when I went into teaching, something I really wanted to do was help people. And I know that sounds extremely basic, I guess, but I really found that passion within streaming, where not only can I help myself, which is extremely important, but I can help others either by a means of just being a friend. I can be a means of creating a safe space as much as I can, whether it be for my community, for my friends, for others within the streaming sphere, content creation sphere overall. And I really love that I am in a position where I can use the skills that I have learned to either mentor others or to educate others or to just share that knowledge. And that's something I really like. And that's not necessarily a buzzword that you can just put on a paper, because it's so much more than that. And one of the steps that I've taken, Twitch has a women's guild, and they started a mentorship program within the guild, and I was selected as a mentor within that, which was extremely exciting because I felt like it was a big step in the right direction of where I want to take streaming. And not just as a creator, but just as an individual. That is something that I'm very passionate about, and being able to share my knowledge. I feel like so many times us as creators hear the term gatekeeping, and everyone is, once you find that little tidbit of knowledge or you find that thing that works, so many people sometimes might be closed off to wanting to share that because they're like, okay, this is my information, this is my thing. If others learn it, like maybe that's gonna be taken away from me or whatever. And I hate that notion so much because I am so much the individual that as soon as I learn something or I'm like, wow, I can help you bypass 10 steps because I already did this and I struggled with it. So if I can give you that knowledge so you don't have to do that, I want to be able to do that. I don't want people to feel like I did where I was feeling stuck in a career for so many years and I didn't think that I had an out. And then I found that means, and then I had to kick myself into gear to catch up on X amount of years where I could have already been in the field that I wanted and I wasn't there. So if I can help people to skip those, 5 years that they would have taken to YouTube everything and figure everything out on their own, and I can quickly just do like hey, let's do a 30-minute sit down. Shoot as many questions you have at me and I will do everything that I can to help you just because I want to. So that's something that I absolutely love, and I love that I'm able to do that in this position. And like I said, it's hard to necessarily bullet point that as a skill, but it's something I've done within content creation that I want to continue pushing on beyond this, even with that.
MayhemMermaid is also a mentor.
I am.
So yeah.
Yeah, Brandy, you've been doing incredible work as a
have
mentor.
you.
Thank you. I feel like it's so important to share those kinds of spaces, especially as women and femmes in content creation. I feel like we struggle harder to stand out in this space just because of how we look and how we present ourselves to the world. But I wanted to bring up something that I personally created a couple of months ago. So I made a video essay about sustainability and resilience as a streamer. It's on YouTube, you can find it there. And the last tip that I shared was finding your flow. And this was created by a Hungarian philosopher named Mxiety, and I'm very proud of myself for being able to pronounce that perfectly. And he was known as the father of flow. And basically, if you think about the phrase "go with the flow," that's where it comes from. So it's a concept of you doing something for a long period of time, and by the time 5 hours have passed, you've been doing it this whole time, and you didn't even realize that that much time had passed between when you first sat down to start doing that thing. So if you find yourself doing something and being in that space where time is endless, but you feel that passion about it and you feel like you can sit through it and get it done, that's your niche. That's where you belong. And I feel like it's really hard to find that as a streamer when, like Steve said, we can have 20 different jobs and there's so many directions we can go in. But if you can at least narrow it down to 3 segments of what you do as a creator and kind of see where your heart is more, I feel like that's the easiest route to go in terms of a direction of where to take it into a career and transition it over from being a creator to being a professional within a corporate role or within a more creative role outside of streaming. And I feel like Brandy has done a great job at that with taking her education background and saying, I want to help people just like I helped children when I first started. And I feel like we've all done that in some way or another. Steve with his accessibility skills and bringing that ability for people who want to play video games, no matter how old they are, to just be able to do that. And then Crev with charity, just helping these incredible companies just bring change to the world in some way or another. And then M is actually my mentor. So I am a mental health advocate as well. So I've learned so much from you. And it's just so nice to see how everybody here in this panel has just found their flow in some way or another. And we are where we are now because we focused our energy on that and we found something that we love to do.
You're going to make her cry. I'm here for it.
You're gonna make me cry.
Anywho, So we have 5 minutes, which I know isn't a lot of time, but if folks have any questions, now is the time to get up and ask them. And while folks are getting up, and if we see they will, I would love to go down the line and have everybody promote themselves and how people can find you and all that good stuff. So if you don't mind, Mermaid.
Sure. You can find me on all social media as TheMayhemMermaid, except Twitter, because Twitter has a character limit, so it's just Mayhem Mermaid. I hate that, but we do what we can. But yeah, I'm on Twitch. I stream Wednesdays and Sundays, and I'm also incorporating Thursdays for co-working streams during the day, so you can catch me then.
You can find me on Twitch at xxBrandy, or I am Slay with Brandy on any other social you can possibly think of. I'm probably there. And I stream Monday through Thursdays at 9 o'clock. I'm a late night streamer, so you would think I do mostly comfy games to go to sleep, but to be honest, more times than not, I'm playing horror games. So if you want to be kept up until 1 a.m. in the morning, I'm your girl.
Nightmare fuel. We love it.
Oh, yeah. Crev?
I am Crev. You can find me at Twitch at Crev, Twitter at CrevLMTV, and pretty much everywhere else I'm CrevLM. So love that. Love all the different names. I stream right now Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, around 2 p.m. Eastern. You can find me playing Final Fantasy games, usually, whether it's Final Fantasy 14 or my favorite, Final Fantasy 7. So that's usually where all I can be found.
I'm Steve Saylor pretty much everywhere. Saylor's S-A-Y-L-O-R. But also I have a brand new project that I just started called Dungeons and Disabled.
Wait, you have to get up and do like, ta-da!
Oh, well, I have the shirt. Dungeons and Disabled. It's basically where a bunch of nerdy disabled people sit around a virtual table and play Dungeons and Dragons with me as the DM. And we have our first episode of our first adventure posting on April 3rd. So you can check everything out on that dungeonsanddisabled.com.
Yay! Okay, we have somebody to ask a question.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Your panel was really interesting, just to let you know.
Thank you.
So, a little bit of context for me. I'm a 30-year-old streamer, French streamer, a small streamer, going on 31 soon. And I'm trying to get in the video game industry, and there's a lot of it's pretty hard for a junior right now. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you your take on one of the biggest pressure I put on myself is missing I'm sorry, English is not
It's
my...
okay. It's like a timeline. English is also my second language, so like missing the timeline, missing like you're too late.
Is it too late? Because I'm going on 31st. I'm still trying to find my footing in the video game industry as a content creator also. So I wanted to know your take on that.
Not at all.
I'm 40 and I just
34.
started.
Yeah.
33.
Never too late.
Yeah, I'm 34 and going back to college. So I am, you're never too late. I'm also one of those people, I'm going to be 80 years old in a college class full of 18-year-olds. The biggest thing is when age gets into a factor, it's a personal thing usually. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the times, your passion and your experience is going to be able to speak for it more than your age ever will. Mm-hmm. So as long as you can kind of get out of the mental rut, and I know that's hard because I have done that 1,000 times as well, especially going in, I'm going to be the oldest in my game design class, so yeah.
I was too. So.
Yeah. Just know that you're not alone. And what it brings to you is that you now have life experience that they don't have at 18. So being able to be a kind of a later bloomer in the sense just gives you more kind of a breadth of knowledge from different aspects. So
listen, life expectancy is like around 100 years old. Can you imagine if you were doing the same thing for the next like 70 years? Like you got a lot of more.
Like 50 times.
You got a lot more other stuff that you could be doing and probably will. But Steve, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying like literally, I am at the happiest in my career I've ever been, and I worked like I said, 15 years in radio. About almost 10 years in customer service call center work before that, and I am the happiest I've ever been. And I just turned 40, so the age is
we got
just
the old
a
people
number.
with you, yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for the
We
question.
will take the last question, but I want to make sure that in case they cut us off because there's a live feed, thank you everybody for being here. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I'm Mxiety and all the things, but ask your question. I hope we can make it in.
Hi, thank you. I don't know if I'm close enough. I hope this question relates to all of y'all as well. I'm a very small streamer, under 600, but I do it every day. Do you guys have any advice for trying to wear many hats, as you guys said? Like there's some things I hate doing, like video editing, like making clips. Like I hate that, so I don't do it. But like, is there any advice you could give for small streamers, like, I don't know, like how to put those hats on that you may not want to put on?
That's a good question. Definitely not a 20-second question. Damn it.
Sorry.
No, if you don't mind, we'll definitely answer it outside. But again, thank you everybody for being here. This was wonderful. Thank you for sharing yourselves and sharing your time. And every moment is precious. And you chose to listen to us talk about the stuff that we've done. So thank you. Thank you,
Thank you, guys.
everybody.
Thank you.